Please welcome to the stage, Stefanie Brickwede.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you very much for being here in this very pleasant venue. My name is Stefanie Brickwede, and I'm responsible for all the 3D printing activities within the corporate Deutsche Bahn, which is quite a big corporate with 300,000 employees and active in more than 140 countries. And it's in October 2015, we started a big corporate project, and about that I would like to tell you some information. The title is Sweet Fruits Are Hard to Reach, How to Find Intriguing 3D Printing Cases. And this is really the main topic from a user's perspective. And I would like to take you with me in the journey of 3D printing. When we started thinking about 3D printing at Deutsche Bahn, we also tried to identify use cases. And we took a look around and found out, wow, you can even print food. I guess you can also see it here in the fair. You can also print medical devices. You can really do good via printing tools and whatever in the health sector. We found this really interesting. In the meantime, you can even have your running shoes printed. This is a picture of Under Armour, but also Additive, German company. They will print 100,000 pairs of shoes starting from next year, and it just takes them 130 minutes to get the insoles of that shoes printed. You can have your home printed. This is an example from Dubai, but there are also some other regions which do experiments with 3D printing of homes. And the whole subject will come to your children's playing rooms. So the ThingMaker is a children printer, and one day also your children might ask you, Mommy, Daddy, what can I print? Please help me. And coming to the more technical items, Uli Klenk this morning already spoke about some examples of the Siemens. This is the example which you've already seen. This really impressed us a lot. We found it really interesting because with this, you can also do repairing via 3D printing or additive manufacturing. I talk a lot about 3D printing because from a management point of view, it's much easier to understand what 3D printing is instead of additive manufacturing. So we stick to the not always really correct expression 3D printing. Now, when we started with thinking about 3D printing, we thought, like many, many other companies, we're going to buy a printer and start printing. And then we started to do some researches about printer costs, and we got a shock. Because if you really want to think about printing industrial parts, like spare parts, those costs will be about €1 million per printer. And this is far away from this little Ultimaker you can also see on the slide for €2,500. So after our first shock, we were really still impressed about what we could do. There doesn't exist the 3D printing technology, as you all might know. There are many, many different technologies which are shown here by the different abbreviations. And the two most important printing technologies we use at Deutsche Bahn is the FDM technology, which you can see over there, and the selective laser melting or sintering for either plastics or metal parts on the other side. Both technologies produce parts which are strong enough to use them not only as a prototype. And then we can come to what can be printed. Usually you have like 3 columns you have prototypes. This is where the technology comes from, which is used by automotive companies for 20 years now. And you can also do tools. And what we do, what we emphasize, is printing spare parts. What I found really interesting, because we also do some prototypes, what you can see over here is a new signal. After 190 years of operating trains, we've created a new signal. You might be amazed, at least I was, because this is similar to a yellow light. And with this sign, we save up to 6 seconds in big stations. 6 seconds. But it was really worth doing it, because from that we get much more punctuality. Of course, you can also do tools. All those examples are examples from our network partners. And you can do like spare parts, which you can see also here, done by Siemens for light rails. What is it that pushes us as a service provider? We are not a producer of trains, we are just a maintainer, and we would like to be more punctual, want to drive our trains on time. And how to get into the technology? On the first step, we took our SAP systems. Like a good consultant, we thought it might be a good idea to do it top-down. And we shook our SAP systems and tried to get out a huge Excel sheet. And after that, it didn't work out at all. Because the information you would usually need to decide whether a part is printable or not, you won't find in the Excel sheets, and you won't find in your SAP. So we did it the other way around. We did it bottom up. And we went to our maintenance sites. And now a problem of Deutsche Bahn arises, because this is a huge company. At least in Germany, we have more than 140 sites. And we went at least to 40 of them in the first year, visited our colleagues and said, "Woo, we have a good idea, start 3D printing." And they said, "What a rubbish. That's all plastic gaming." And then we said, "No, it's a very good idea, because you just have to pick the right parts." And this is what we call the daisy principle. To print or not to print. You always have to make the discussion, the decision under certain circumstances. And the criteria for 3D printable spare parts are the maximum component size. You can't really print every part. And especially railways are usually big, and you also have big parts. And if you go to the machining producers, you will learn that it's hard to print any size. The material is crucial, of course, especially if it comes to flame retardants in plastics. That's very important for railways. The number of pieces. If you want to produce more than 1,000 parts, usually forget 3D printing. The input costs are very important, and the component complexity, and of course the availability. So this is our main point. Usually we can't get the parts anymore from the market. That's exactly when we start with 3D printing. And here you can see a very historical train. And you might think, oh, she brought a picture from a museum. No, she didn't. This is still on the tracks. It's a beautiful train. It's very old, even older than I am. And there we had a little problem with such coat hangers. And if you are one of our passengers and you come in one of our trains in the morning and you can't even hang your coat, that's the first impression, which is negative. And we try to work against that, so we printed those coat hangers. This was our first 3D printed part. This is something which I would call low-hanging fruits. It's quite easy. The part is not too complex. You can easily print it. It tastes really sweet because this is a case right from the beginning. The alternative is much more expensive. So this was a good example to start with. And we went on. We printed terminal box, which is linked with the motor block of an ICE 1 or 2. ICEs are our fast speed trains. And here you can see it down there. It's a little yellow one, and you can also see it here printed. Usually it's a part molded part from aluminum, and this was our first metal part. And when we come with this part to our maintenance sites and give it to our colleagues with a metal part weighing 2.5 kilograms, they really start taking it for serious. And the gold rush started? Not really yet, but we're working on it. So this is a very interesting part. It's a locker. It's a locker from a train locomotive, and there you always have such little things which get broken. They're made from plastic, and at that point, you have to replace the whole locker. And this is quite expensive, because if you want to replace the locker, it costs you 100 euro. If you just replace the little plastic things, it just costs you 1 euro. So this is an interesting case. It's not a very big part. It's not optimized bionically, but still, this really makes sense. This is also a very interesting part. With this, we prevent downtime. This is a sand stairway. I don't know whether some of you already have heard that trains break with sand. So they push a very tiny little amount of sand on the tracks so that the wheel can get some grip. And therefore, you need a unit which takes care of the sand. So this is exactly the part, and we printed it, and it was our first titanium printed part. 1 year ago, I would have ever said the Deutsche Bahn will never print titanium. It's much too expensive. But with this very interesting technology, printing titanium is cheaper than printing steel. How comes? You have like these layers, layer by layer, in the powder bed technology. And if you can print faster from layer to layer and sinter faster, it becomes much cheaper, because the machining costs are so high that the material costs are not that important anymore. Some of the parts of this fair also deal with IoT, Internet of Things. So what we do is we try to monitor our station clocks. This is crucial for railways, of course, and therefore we printed this little box, and now we are capable of monitoring our clocks and watches. Coming to the high-hanging fruits, very sweet, but very high at the tree, and you have to make some effort to get them. For us, increased availability is a crucial subject, and what you can see here is a headrest, which you can imagine, it's quite big, like this, and you find it behind your head in the trains. And therefore, we have to meet the restrictions of flame retardants, which are very strict in rail business, even stricter than in aviation, which surprises some people. But the logic is, if you have grounded an airplane, within 90 seconds, it's empty out of passengers. What happens before, none of us would like to think about. So within 90 seconds, the plane is empty. In trains, you might be in a tunnel. You have to get out of the tunnel first. Then you have to stop somewhere where all those passengers can get out easily, and So therefore, flame retardants is a very important thing for us, and we, in cooperation with some machining providers and also material providers, we try to find the right material which can be used within trains, especially when they are very close to the passenger. With 3D printing, you can also increase customer comfort. This is one of my favorite examples. This is a little sign which is used in the train stations, and this is for blinded people. So they can orientate themselves in a station. You have this at the handles of the stairways, and then they can read with their fingers, I'm standing here and this is the exit to whatever street. And whatever street means that you just need 2 signs per station from every sign. So this will lead to, it's very, very expensive if you produce those in the former technologies. And if we print it, and we do this in aluminium, we just have 1/3 of the costs of the traditional production. So the potential of additive manufacturing at Deutsche Bahn, we think it's great. In the first year, starting 2015 in October, we printed 10 parts. Woo. The next year, we already printed 1,000 parts, which does not mean 1,000 different ones, but at least 1,000 absolute parts. This year, we wanted to print 2,000 parts, and we will make this. At the moment, we've already printed approximately 2,600, as it was told before. And from next year on, we want to print 15,000 parts. I show you this to make clear that we really believe in this technology for railways. And there, if you want to print 15,000 parts, you need some kind of automation. At the moment, it works like there's someone from a maintenance site, and he says, we have a problem with one part, and usually we don't have any drawings. Sometimes we have 2D drawings. We definitely never have 3D drawings. So usually there comes a little box with a spare part. We take a look at it and say it's printable or not. And therefore, we need some more automation. But where's the journey going? A colleague before talked about the hype cycle of Gardner. Will we fall back? Is it just another hype? We believe, no, it's not. But still, we have to achieve some aims before we really get the breakthrough for all industries, for all use cases. The costs have to be lowered. We need approved materials and technologies, and we have to increase the number of printed parts in whatever sector. We also want to get rid of the enormous costs for warehousing. At the moment, just at Deutsche Bahn and just for the rolling stock, we spend more than 600 million euros per year for spare parts on stock. If we can reduce it just by 1 or 2%, this is pure cash out. It's really attractive. And maybe this is our vision, and we share it with other companies, also like Siemens. Our warehouse will fit on a stick in the future. But this also disrupts one part of our company, which is DB Schenker. DB Schenker is a company globally acting, and their business is to transport and to do the contract logistics for other companies. So we already know that 3D printing will lead to insourcing. In the future, will they only transport powders or cables? So that's why my colleagues already take this into account and try to integrate 3D printing in their value chain. If you really want to achieve this breakthrough, can you do this on your own in your little chamber? No. What we did, we founded a network, and we think together is better than alone. And I guess you think too, otherwise you wouldn't have come here. So we founded a network, and this is the starting membership. It's right in front of the Emperor Station in Potsdam, which is a very nice venue to meet, but more interesting is what we talked about that day. And the network was founded last year in September, so it's now 1 year ago. And in the meantime, we have more than 55 members. And all of them want to concentrate on printing spare parts, want to think about the quality and the reproducibility of spare parts in the same quality which is needed. And as you can see here, it's not only Deutsche Bahn and not only Siemens, but also Volkswagen as an automotive company, and others also from the shipment industry will follow within the next weeks. So all of those have the same aims. And what do we do within the network? Of course, making contacts, having a nice beer together, but this is not the main aim. We want to work on key areas, which is certification for rail and light rail. We want to work on education. We know exactly we don't have enough people who already come from the universities and know what 3D printing means. We want to talk about the digital supply chain and to reduce warehouse costs. And we want to talk about the legal framework. We've started working groups on all 4 aspects, and also, as I already explained, about the same returns of plastics. Yeah. We also do joint marketing, of course, and if you should be interested in that or joining us, or you just have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you very much.
Would you like to ask if there's any questions? Does anybody have I have a microphone here. I'll bring it down to you if you would like to ask Stefanie a question. Don't be shy, I'll be more than happy to bring it down. Once again, she and the other speakers will be coming back up here in just a few short minutes. Thank you, Stefanie.